And kia ora tātou, and thank you very much for inviting me along, and it's my real pleasure and honour to be here. And I really want to acknowledge the Wednesday morning brain injury group. They've taught me a lot. This is a group the group has been running for nearly 30 years. And I want to acknowledge the work of the late Dorothy Gronwall, who started that group and who was a real pioneer in neuropsychology and working with brain injury. One of the things I've tried to do is kind of honour her legacy with that group. And so some of the things I'm going to be talking to you about today are as a result of my experience with that group and listening to the people who have come along in the last 13 years and taught me things about what it's like living with a brain injury. When I started out as a psychologist, I used to do a lot of brain injury work, and I did sort of couple relationship stuff was kind of a sideline. And in the 20 years since, it's kind of reversed. Now mainly I do couple and relationship work, and the brain injury stuff is more of a sideline. So I still run that group on Wednesday mornings. I still see a few old clients who come back and hunt me down, and I still supervise some psychologists. So I'm still talking with people about brain injuries, but it's not the main thing I do. So I've talked a lot with people about relationships, and what I'm going to try and do today is there's a couple of things I want to say about relationships in general that I kind of feel like I always have to say when I'm talking to anybody about relationships, because I think we get a lot of bad information about relationships. And so I want to talk about those. And then Elisa sent me some questions that I got from people. So the rest of what I'm going to talk about is mainly addressing the questions that I got from you, Elisa. And because I have a brain injury, I have to consult my notes because I don't remember stuff. Okay. I think the first thing I always have to say is that the movies and the TV and the books and the waiata, they lie. They lie to us about love, and they lie to us about relationships, and so there's some things that we kind of have to get clear in our minds about relationship. If we're not going to get confused, like it's not happily ever after if you fall in love. It's just not. And love does not conquer all. I'm sorry, it does not. It's just not the way things work. And so it can be really confusing if you believe that stuff, because if you're having problems in a relationship, and whether it's a romantic relationship or a whānau relationship, and things are difficult, you think, well, something is going wrong here. No. Okay? So the first thing I want to try and say to you, right, is that if you're in a relationship with somebody and there are unpleasant feelings, really? Right? Okay? That means that doesn't. No. I'll do it this way. That does not equal, right? It does not mean that anything is going wrong. It doesn't mean that. It might mean that, but it doesn't have to mean that. Okay? If you're in a relationship with somebody and things are difficult and there's tension and there's disagreement and there's conflict, it doesn't mean there's necessarily anything going wrong. It's unpleasant. We don't like it. It doesn't necessarily mean there's anything going wrong. And we've got to remember that. Conflict is normal. There's always a tension between what's good. Oh no, I'll do it this way around. What's good for us and what's good for me. Okay? Whenever there's more than one person, there's a tension between what's right for me and what's right for us. Okay? Always. There's a tension. And it's kind of like, so there are unpleasant feelings about that. You know, I want to do the right thing to help you, to help us, but, you know, oh, what about me in that? And there's always that tension, and that feels unpleasant. It feels horrible sometimes. You know, you don't know what's the right thing to do. So when that's going on, right, nothing is wrong necessarily, but it's not necessarily pleasant. We've got to not freak out, basically. So where there's a conflict, is that falling down, isn't it? What's happening? Scary. Yeah, I know the feeling. Either that or this board has been drinking. That's the other possibility. You know, when there's a conflict, when there's disagreement, there's, you know, a lot of us want to avoid the conflict. We want to keep the peace. Okay? If there's a conflict, we want to keep the peace. You know? Keep the waters smooth. So I'm calling that avoiding the conflict. Yeah? And of course, some people, right? Some people, right? What did I want to call it? I want to call it, they lash out, right? Some people lash out. When there's a conflict, they get really scared, they get really frightened, they get really worried, and they lash out, and they do stuff, right? Yeah? And it's like, so this is, you know, this is what I would call politely unproductive fighting. Right? Because I'd say that sometimes there's productive fighting, but this is unproductive fighting. No good's going to come out of this with somebody's lashing out. So neither of these work when there's a conflict. But there's something we can do in the middle. And in New Zealand, I think what we do is what we call this is you've got to be able to handle the jandle. Handle the jandle, right? There's a conflict, there's tension, there's difficulty, and you've got to be able to handle that. You've got to not freak out, not run away from it, but not lash out, right? There's this middle road that we've got to find. And it's tough, you know, and it's tough in every relationship. And if you've had a brain injury, sometimes it's tougher because your ability to kind of, to avoid these extremes is not as good as it used to be. But this is a problem for everybody in every relationship, right? It's not just a brain injury thing. And there's something I want to say about why this happens in relationship. And I think the simplest way to say it is our brains are not built for love. Our brains are built for survival. First and foremost, okay? It doesn't mean we can't do love, but we're not built for it. So, you guys familiar with this? This is a picture of a brain on the side, right? So this is the front of my brain here, the frontal lobes up here, right? And inside, we've got those of you who you guys are brain injury experts, so you might be familiar with these ideas. We're talking about brain parts. This is the limbic system. This is the bit that's trying to keep us safe in the world, right? And it's scanning all the time for danger. It's looking for things that might hurt you. Scanning all the time. And this bit here, this bit doesn't really do logic, and it doesn't do reason. You can't really argue with it, right? And it's really, really fast. Right? This bit here, it's got to think things through, and it uses language and logic, and it's slow. You know? But let me ask you this. If you open the door to a stranger, how long does it take you to work out whether this person is safe. How far? Like, that's exactly, I reckon, how fast. It's that fast, right? That's this part. That's this part, right? If you tried to do it with this part, you'd be going, oh, well, you know, what's his facial expression and how tall is he? You know, no, it'd take you forever, you know. So this part's scanning the world all the time. And what we now know is that this part that's checking for danger, it doesn't make any difference whether the danger is a threat to your body or a threat to your feelings. Doesn't make any difference. Okay, on a brain scan, right? If somebody's trying to cut you down with a machete, or they're trying to cut you down with an unkind word, this part of your brain lights up just the same, right? And what does it tell you to do? Right? Fight, freeze, or flee, right? Now, here's where it gets really weird when you think about relationships with important people, with your whānau, with the people that you love in your life and you care about. It gets really, really weird. And this is, and I don't even, you know, I don't like telling people this. I don't like telling people, this is kind of bad news, okay? It's a really weird thing, and it's completely the opposite of what we get taught in our culture. But it's something, it's so important, we got to understand it, and we got to know it. So this is you. I feel like I'm riding on a ship because this thing keeps rocking. It's like, either that or I drank way too much last night, but I didn't, so it can't be that. Okay. And this is somebody else. You can do whatever you want to. All right. And if you've got somebody who is close to you in your life and who is really important to you, okay, those two things. What will happen is, and when I say important, I don't just mean that you care about them a lot. I mean your life is really bound up with theirs, right? So if you're married to them and you've got a parcel of kids, okay, they're really important. Okay. But if you if somebody if you've had a brain injury and you depend on somebody else to look after you, they're really, really important to you. They're really important to you, right? So that's what when I say talk about importance, I'm talking about it kind of like a structural thing. And the trouble is that when somebody is really, really important to you, and then they're really close to you because they're around you a lot and they live with you a lot, and you have maybe it can get to the point where being around them feels like a threat to who you are. Because what I mean by that is, if you're that important to me, maybe I'm dependent on you. If I lose your love, your care, your respect, right? My life is kind of going to be over. At least as I know it. I may survive, but my life is going to be really, really changed. So it feels really, really threatening if I lose your love, your care, your respect, your approval. So what did I say? When we get a threat to our psychological, our emotional sense of self, what do? Right? We fight, we freeze, or we run away. Isn't that romantic? Okay? But do you know what I'm talking about? Okay? You know what I'm talking about. And I'm not talking about brain injury here. I'm talking about relationship. If you've got a relationship with somebody who's really important, right, and you're close to them, it's very hard. You can't beat the system. This is what's going to happen particularly if you live together, okay? If you're not living together, you can manage this. My mother fled her family to the other side of the world, right? My mother was Danish. My father was Dutch. My mother was Danish. My mother fled to the other side of the world because she couldn't handle being around in the same hemisphere as her mother. And my relationship with my mother was much better when I was on the other side of the world. It's like when we weren't too close, we could handle this. Not so good when we were close together. This is reactivity. We're very reactive to each other. So, and when we get reactive, I don't know what I was going to say. So I was talking about this fist here, right? What happens when this happens, right? We flip our lid. See this frontal lobe bit here, this part that's reason and judgment and being able to control yourself and all of that? That gets flipped. Bang, it's gone. The blood flow stops going to it. This part's in charge. This part's in control. That's when we do this. If you're talking about a lizard, this is the behavior you'd see. A lizard will fight or freeze, right? Or flee, scurry away. If you're talking about human beings, I think the behavior that we do is a little more complicated than that, because we won't just use anger and aggression. We certainly can do that, but we'll use any feeling to dominate. So if there's a clash, oh, hang on, this is going to get hard. Can you read that? Hang on. You read that all right? Okay. You read that all right over there? If there's a clash, if you're really important to me, and there's a clash between what you want and what I want, or what you think and what I think, right? And I don't want to deal with that. I'm feeling overwhelmed by that. I just want to back you off. Now, I could do that by being angry with you, shouting at you, talk to the hand, I can do that stuff. But if I come at you with a whole lot of sadness, if I come at you with a whole lot of worry, right? If I come at you with, tell me you love me, show me you love me, prove to me you love me, tell me why you love me. If I come at you with all that kind of anxiety, I'll back you off. You'll be busy worrying, dealing with my feelings. I won't have to hear what's going on with you. So we dominate. We dominate with our feelings. Okay? So lizards will freeze. I think human beings have evolved maybe to the level of pack animals. What does a pack animal do, right? They don't freeze, they roll over and show their belly, right? So the formal word for that is submit, or if you want to talk about human beings, really the technical term for giving in, right? What Chamberlain did to Hitler, right? We appease. I give in to try and keep the peace. I give in. I give you what I think you want. Now, when I'm doing that, okay, that's not generosity. Okay, I'm not being negative about generosity. Is a different thing. This is fear-based. This is just me giving in because I just don't want to deal with it. I don't want to think. My anxiety is running me at this point. Now, the trouble is, if somebody does a lot of that, a lot of giving in all the time, they end up resentful. And when you get resentful, then your emotions end up here, dominating. Even though you may not be direct with them, but they get in the way. Okay, we can also run away. So we can physically run away, right? We can go into another room. We can go and be busy with our hobbies. We can go and be busy with our church or our friends, or we can get away from the relationship that's bugging it. But sorry, that came out wrong. Bugging us. And of course, not everybody has the option to run away. So if you physically can't run away, you can mentally run away. You can put the walls up and emotionally cut off, withdraw. So you can physically withdraw into another space or another activity, or you can put the walls up, shut down. Now I'm saying all of us do this automatically. This is what happens in relationships all the time. Okay? Now, if you've had a brain injury, or somebody you love has had a brain injury, right? Often, particularly if they're dependent, the whole thing about the importance, whoa, it's really big, because I depend on you. You're my life, literally. I kind of can't have a life without you. Whoa, that's big. So one of the things about, one of the questions was about, when my loved one is very angry or very upset. So sometimes it's brain injury. Sometimes it's my frontal lobes have been damaged and I can't settle myself down. Sometimes it's that, but sometimes it's this. Sometimes it's emotional, not neuropsychological. Does this make sense? Okay. So what I'm wanting you to think about, we all do this, okay? This is just a normal, I was going to say human, but it's actually a normal animal thing, right? We all do this. What I want you to think about is, typically, we have one that we do first, and then another one we do second, and another one we do third, right? So typically, I shut off first, right? I'm really good at putting up a wall, so, emotionally sort of being blank. And then, if that doesn't work, I'll try and appease. I'll try and give my wife what I think she wants, anxiously kind of focus on her, which doesn't make her feel loved, by the way. Right? Even though I'm running around after her trying to please her, she doesn't feel loved when I do that. And, if that doesn't work, then I get ugly. And I tend to go to anger. I don't use other emotions particularly much. I just get angry. Right? So that's the order that I tend to do. Okay, so the question is, if you have an argument, isn't it healthier to walk away? And the answer I'm going to give you, and it's an annoying answer, is it depends. Okay? Because I'm going to talk about timeout. No, it's not on that handout. I've got another handout. So I'm going to talk about using timeout, because sometimes it's really important to walk away. And it's the most loving and caring and the best way to sort things out. Absolutely. Because you need, once you've flipped your lid, right? Once this part of you is running you, right? Once that old part of you is running you, you're not going to have an intelligent conversation about anything. All you got is two really scared animals going at each other. Then it's time to walk away. Absolutely. But you got to come back. So I'll talk about that in a minute. Okay? So it's really important for me to be able to believe in myself and back myself. Think what I think, want what I want. That's important, right? That's one half of what you need to be able to do if you're going to stay in a relationship with somebody. The other half is I also got to believe just as strongly, not more strongly, but just as strongly, that it's okay for you to think what you think and want what you want. And they may be different. And if they're really different and it's about something important, then we have a problem. But the problem is not I'm right and you're wrong. The problem is we think differently. We want something different. What are we going to do about that? And the thing to learn, and the thing that I don't think we ever get taught in our movies, in our books, and I don't know about you, but I didn't learn it in my home either, is that it's okay to be in conflict. And if we hang out there, and if I can keep my cool, or maybe walk away if I need to, but come back, and then I can learn about you, and I can learn more about me through kind of hanging in there and letting you have your thoughts, but keep my own thoughts. So if two of you are doing this, right? If two of you are doing this, then your partner will also give you room to listen, to hear what you're having to say, right? If two people are doing this, then they'll want to hear how it is for you. And that's because that's where conflict can be a really good thing. Like if we're in conflict about something, and I'm trying to convince you and I'm trying to explain to you how it is for me, I'm really having to kind of go deep inside myself to tell you how it is, put it into words or show you how it is for me, right? And that's intimacy. I'm letting you see into me, how it is for me, what's going on with me. And so long as we can manage all that stuff I had on the board before, that handout I've given you, we can manage that reactive stuff, the fight, freeze, and flight stuff, then we have an opportunity to really learn. And that's love in action. That's what love looks like. Is when I disagree with you, but I'm willing to hear how it is for you. That's love. That's love. It's not the gooey feelings. It's love is having the room to letting you be you and me be me. That's love. Okay? So staying solid means making room for myself and knowing what I think and being able to say what I think and want, but also hear how it is for you. right? That's what I'm talking about, staying silent. So I've given you a handout there. So I've got 4 pages. I've got one double-sided here, and I've got another. So I've given you handouts so you can remember this stuff, because I don't know about you, but I got a brain injury, and if I don't write it down, if I don't have it written, I won't remember.
Good man.
Yeah. Okay. That's also why I got my name on here, so you know who I am. See? You don't have to remember. Okay. What was I going to do? Oh, okay. So now I want to talk about the timeout thing. I want to talk about that now. Remember, I'm saying it's normal that we have conflict, and it's normal that we end up doing this self-protective stuff where we're dominating or appeasing or withdrawing. So we're saying it's normal. We're saying it's going to happen. And I think a lot of people get told to use timeout, but they don't always get told how to do it well. And if you don't do it well, my experience is it doesn't work. Okay? So for example, let me see if anybody in this room has ever tried this one. Okay? My partner's getting really worked up. My partner's flipping her lid, right? And I tell her, you need to take a time out. Anybody tried that one?
Yeah.
Does it work? No. So the way I talk about using timeout is, I have somebody that I'm that I'm in a relationship with, and we go, hey, look, sometimes we get really ugly in the way that we conflict. It's what I end up saying and doing, I don't like that person.
It's like ugly looking at ugly.
Yeah, well, I'll talk about me, you can talk about you.
Oh, no.
No, I'm saying. No, what I'm saying is I would not tell my partner she's ugly, is what I'm saying. That's not a good idea. I'll say I get ugly, and if she wants to say she gets ugly, okay, that's right? It's for her to say. I'll talk about me. I get ugly. I don't do good stuff. I don't like that guy. So I want to, so at a time when we're getting along really, really well, we make an agreement to do time out when we're not getting on so well. We make an agreement. And we have a really clear understanding between us that taking time out is a way for us to stay in relationship and stay connected. That's what we're doing it for. It's not a way. So time out is not running away, right? So it's not that withdrawal thing. It's not the flee thing. It's not that. It's a way to try and keep the conversation going, keep the connection going. That's what it's for. And what I'm talking about is what I've seen work over and over again. And so if you have somebody that you're in relationship with, and you can make this agreement and say, look, next time we get worked up, let's try this timeout thing. Okay? And it doesn't matter who says it. But the most important part about taking a time out is not so much the taking the time out, it's making sure that you come back. So that it's not an end to the conversation. Right? Because if we're having an argument, if we're having a conversation, and you just get up and walk away from me and don't come back, right? That's incredibly rude. And I'm going to feel so hurt and so disempowered if you do that to me, right? And it's a really aggressive thing to do to somebody else, is to say, I'm going to take away your right to speech with me, right? It's a really aggro thing to do. So you don't want to be doing that. That is not a good thing to do. So, and a lot of people end up using time out like that. I'm angry with you, so I'm going to take a time out and stuff you. I'm out of here. Right? That's not time out. Time out is, oh, this is not going well. I'm feeling anxious. I don't think I can do well. Give me 5 minutes. I just want to go make a cup of tea. I want to settle myself down. And then we're going to keep going about this conversation. We're going to keep going. And you know what? If we're doing this at 11:30 at night, I don't know about you, but I'm no good at 11:30 at night. My brain is fried. Okay? And if we end up in a heavy conversation, I'm saying, look, I can't do this now. I'm not in a fit state. I'm going to say something I regret. Can we talk about it tomorrow? And if we're busy tomorrow because we got whānau visiting, let's talk about it on the weekend. You know? But whenever I make it like a solemn promise on my children's head, you know, I will be back. I will have that conversation with you. I'm not, it's got to be that serious. So that timeout is a way to keep the conversation going, not end it. Then we need to work out, why is this so scary or threatening to both of us, or one or both of us, that we can't settle ourselves down and do it in a solid way? We've got to work out that, and we've got to just keep coming back until we work that out. And until we work that out, we'll keep erupting, right? I mean, that's just, and that's not, it's not an easy thing. And, my wife and I have been together for nearly 36 years now. And, there are some things that we are still clashing about, right, that we haven't finished sorting out yet. I don't know that we're going to. I mean, we're working on it. We've got to keep trying. But, that's part of being in a relationship. Nobody's perfect. Well, you might be, but I'm not. Nobody's perfect. And part of the deal about loving people, right, is accepting them as being normal, flawed human beings, just like me, just like you. We do our best, and then sometimes we stuff up. And sometimes we're reactive, right? Like that stuff I had on the board before. And that happens. And we've got to try and work out why. And usually if we can work out why. And often this is where it can get really intimate, right? We're really learning about ourselves when we work out why we're so reactive. So my wife, you can hear I'm a pretty loud I'm a big, loud, expressive, all over the place. And you can imagine when I get angry, how big I get. I'm a big guy, my voice is loud. I don't have to go up very many notches. I don't have to be very angry for me to start looking pretty damn scary, right? My wife's, an average-sized woman, right? Now, she grew up in a family where there was a lot of fighting. She was the little one, right? She's number 5 of 5, right? She carrying under the table, all the big ones are fighting, right? That's what she grew up with. So I don't have to get very big for it gets scary for her. Now, until we work that out, I'm coming back to your question, right? Until there was a real conflict. I felt like she was being really controlling of me. That she would kind of tell me, don't yell at me. I'm not yelling. When I yell, the damn windows rattle. This is just me raising my voice slightly, So we'd fight about that until I kind of got how it was for her, and then I could really understand how it was for her, and I could settle it down, because she wasn't being controlling. She was just scared. What people who've had brain injuries, particularly if you've had, frontal lobe involvement, your ability to regulate those fight, flight, and freeze reactions, your ability is reduced. That's just the way it is. If you're in a relationship with somebody like that, then I think the cold comfort, the cold reality is, you've kind of got to find a way to not take it personally. Okay? And the way I think about this is, let's imagine you've got a 2-year-old who you've dragged around town shopping, right? And they haven't had their afternoon nap, and then they throw a tantrum. Okay? No fault of their own. You've dragged them around. They haven't had the sleep they need. They throw a tantrum. Do you take it personally when that 2-year-old has a tantrum? Do you take it personally? You do? Oh, okay. How's that working for you? No, it doesn't work. No, it doesn't. If you take that personally, you're in trouble. Okay, it's not personal. Or let me, another example, right? You got a 14-year-old who wants to go to a party that you think is not suitable for them, and you tell them no. You get a different kind of tantrum then, but you get a tantrum. And again, if you're a parent, I think you should not take that personally. Your 14-year-old's going to rage you. They're going to tell you they hate you and you're the worst parent in the world. You just go, oh, yes, honey, I know I am the worst person in the world, but you're still not going to the party, right? And it's just like, I don't like it when my kids are angry with me, but I don't, that stuff, water off a duck's back. What I'm saying to people, if you're in relationships with somebody who's had a brain injury, I'm saying you got to try, and I'm not saying this is easy, but I'm saying that the challenge is to try and not take it personally when they are reactive like that. Okay? Now, I actually think this is actually true of all of us in our relationships. You know, if you think, I'm saying everybody gets reactive in their relationships with their important people. Everybody gets reactive. And part of the way through is just to not take it personally. Oh, okay, my partner's being reactive, or my loved one is being reactive, right? They've got scared. Their self is threatened by something. That's not about me. That's about them. That's actually kind of the path through for all of us in relationship. So, and I'm not saying this is easy, but I'm saying the path that we want to try and walk is let my loved one's feelings be their responsibility. It's their issue if they're upset, not mine. Okay, I'm not saying this is easy to do. And I think one of the key things about that is, if I'm feeling like I've done my best, I'm feeling like I've been true to what I believe in, who I want to be, what my values are. If I feel okay about my choices, what I've tried to do, and somebody else is not okay with it, well, you know, look, I really believe I've done my best, and if you don't like it, you're entitled to not like it, but I don't have to make that my problem. Now, again, this is a lot easier said than done. I'm not saying this is easy, but I'm saying this is what works. Okay? Sometimes what works is not what's easy. You know, what's easy in the moment is to give the person what they want. Keep the peace. That's easy. Or just blow your lid. That's easy in the moment. But it doesn't work. So I'm one of those annoying people who say, look, there's this thing that works and it's really, really hard and you still got to do it. I'm one of those annoying people. I was just having this conversation with my son yesterday. Okay. Now, when somebody's really jealous, when you're taking things really, really personally, the more I feel bad about myself, the more I feel like I'm not worth much. I'm not good enough. The more I'm going to be taking things personally, the more I'm going to expect that people are negative and critical towards me, and the more I'm going to expect that the people I love are going to abandon me. That's what happens. If I don't think I'm any good, then why would anybody want to love me? Why would anybody want to stay with me? I think I'm no good. So I don't believe it when you tell me that you love me. I don't believe it when you tell me you're going to stay with me. Yeah, well, a lot of us are like that. Okay? And I think a lot of us who've had... I'm not an us in that one. A lot of people who've had brain injuries to the point where they can no longer do what they used to do. Right? A lot of people, particularly who've had a brain injury, and they can no longer do paid employment. Right? They feel like they're not worth much. Am I right?
Welcome to my world.
Yeah. Well, it's the world. I mean, this is the world I've been living and working in the last 20 years. I mean, I think I get it. As much as anybody who's, out there able to earn a good living doing what I enjoy, can get it. I think I get it. And I mean, I've spent a lot of years trying to help people deal with the grief and the pain of that. But I'm here to talk to you about relationships. So I don't want to minimize that pain. But what I want to say to you is, if that's how you feel about yourself, it's going to poison every relationship that you have. I'm sorry. I know. Sometimes the news I have is not good. But what I would challenge you, and what I have seen people do, is they found another way to love and like and accept themselves, even with a brain injury. They found a path through to say, I have a life that is worth living. So, I mean, there are people who manage to make it work. Okay? So what I know is that it's possible. I also know that the statistics are that a lot of marriages do end when one partner's had a brain injury. So, but a lot of marriages end when a child is killed, which is terrible. Sorry, terrible. I don't know why that example came to my mind, but it's a terrible thing to happen. And sometimes couples just cannot handle the grief together, and they break up. It's a terrible thing. Well, and it's like that. Terrible things happen, and sometimes relationships don't survive. And I can't pretty that up, but I also know that people do survive and people do make it work. And what I'm trying to do is tell you the things that I think will increase the odds in your favour. That's the best I can offer. And as I say, some of it is hard. Not all of it is easy. Okay. I'm going to give you now. There's two more sides to the handouts. Okay. And somebody asked for sort of for relationship tips, communication tips, and both of these are in that vein. So one is called repair attempts. Okay. So and this is. I'm saying this thing, everybody gets reactive in their relationships. Everybody gets angry or gets upset or pulls away or tries to appease their partner. Everybody does this. And the difference between the successful relationships and the unsuccessful relationships is not does that happen, because that happens to everybody, is what do you do then? Do you know how to fix things up when the relationship has been damaged between the two of you? Do you know? That's what we call repair attempts, right? So the relationship has momentarily been damaged between us. Do we know how to fix it up? And what this handout is saying is there are two kinds. There's the stuff that's in the moment, So the other day I was rushing out of the office. I was late for a meeting. The phone went, and I went to my wife, "I'm not here." She didn't hear me, right? So she picked up the phone, goes, "Oh yes, I'll get him for you." I'm going, "No!" Really aggressively. I was really horrible in my I didn't say it out loud because I knew there was somebody on the phone, but my non-verbals. So, the moment that phone call was over, I went to her and I said, "I'm so sorry. I did not need to be like that." So in the moment, right, the first available opportunity, I fixed it up with her. I'd been yucky because I was stressed. I was trying to get out the door. So I'd been yucky. So I went and apologised and I sorted it out and gave her a kiss and a hug, and then I went off to my meeting, So I made a little repair attempt just in the moment, yeah? And, this is one thing if you're in a couple relationship, or no, any relationship, you can talk with each other. Well, what do we do that kind of gets things back on track? I'll tell you this story. I was reading this thing. This woman was describing. This is the most kind of weirdest but funniest one. This woman, she said, when things get tense between my husband and I, what my husband does is he farts, and I laugh like a teenage kid, and that just breaks the mood. So it doesn't matter what it is that you do. I have to say that would not work with my wife. So what I'm trying to say, it's personal. It's very personal what you do that can fix things in the moment. But it's a really good thing to talk about with your partner and think about, because it's something we often do unconsciously, automatically, but you can actually be more deliberate about it and go, "Oh, hang on, that was a bit icky. Let's sort it out in the moment." Then the other kind of repair attempt is when things have really gone off the rails, right? Where there's been a fight, where there's been a long period of silence and, right? Then you got to do a bigger thing, right? So the way I think about it, and I hope this is, is there's a difference between, the ones in the moment. It's like I'm driving along and I'm kind of drifting. I'm drifting onto the edge of the road, right? And I just have to turn the wheel and bring it back into the center of the road, right? I'm not, right? Those are the ones in the moment, and so the journey isn't interrupted. And then there are the other ones where I go off the road, right? I'm in the ditch. I'm going to put the car into reverse and back up the bus, and then we go forward again, right? And those are the two different kinds of. So having a conversation with your partner or your family member, your loved one, about, when things go wrong, what can we do? What can we do? How can we sort it out? You pick a time when he's not upset and he's not angry, and you talk about that, and you go, "Hey, hon, there's this thing that keeps happening, and it's worrying me, because we end up having things that don't get sorted out, and I want to sort things out with you, and you're allowed to get angry and you're allowed to get upset, but I love you, I care about you, and I want to sort it out with you. People who don't feel good about themselves, right, then they get suspicious about what you're doing. So there's a conversation there you need to have about honey, it looks like you're scared that I'm not going to love you anymore. If I'm out of sight of you, that I'll somehow fall in love with somebody else or whatever it is. It's like, and I want to talk with you about that, And, there's the thing about, kind of your partner recognizing maybe doesn't feel so good about himself. One of the things I wanted to say is that, this stuff can change, but it takes time. It takes a lot of practice, and you've got to give yourself years to kind of get better with this stuff. You don't expect to change things overnight, but you can do it. And I mean, it's really important for all, for anybody with a brain injury to think, remember, yeah, I'm kind of here now, but things can go on changing. It is possible. It's possible for things to go on changing. So look, I know I need to finish, but so the last piece of paper, the last is 20 positive things you can do in your relationship. So there's one more tips thing, right? Which is, and you can, there's instructions on there, but basically it's an opportunity, something you can do. You don't have to ask your partner. There's just something you do. You can pick one of those things on there and do it for a week, and it will help your relationship. Violence and particularly intimidation, right, destroys relationships, okay? And if you're so scared that you cannot speak your mind, that you cannot be true to yourself, if you can't do this, then you don't have a real relationship, okay? So now, if you've got, it's a really important relationship to you, you're not going to jump to that conclusion quickly, right? If you've got a whole bunch of kids together and stuff, it's not an easy conclusion. But if it's really not, if your partner is showing you by his behavior that this is not acceptable to him, then it's time to get out.